Ernest Chu has driven a sweeping dual transformation approach across Globe Telecom for over a decade in his role as Group CEO. Today, we will discover how Globe transformed their traditional mobile services business to create a successful digital services company. And Ernest will give us an insight into how they remain the clear market leader. Let's start from the beginning, Ernest. Before joining Globe, you were well known in the Philippines as a successful entrepreneur and one of the founders of the BPO sector. Tell us how you found your way to becoming the CEO of Globe Telecom.
After I had decided to, change careers and change industries after 11 years in the BPO industry, I really wanted to go into private equity first. That was, I think, around 06, 07, 08. That was the time frame when I was making up my mind. So I put together a fund, actually. It was called Aligned Capital. My partner was a former director of SPI Technologies, with the company I was running for 11 years. And we had proceeded to raise money, but unfortunately we got derailed by the Lehman crisis when private equity went out of the window. And the thought was to grow companies around Southeast Asia. And fortunately enough, I had as one of my LPs the Ayala Corporation. When we decided to fold up the fund, Jaime Augusto Zobel de Ayala asked me and said, "Hey, can you help me out and take on the helm of Globe, given that the CEO already wants to retire and has put in his time?" And I said, "Sure, let's do it for 2 years, right? And let's go and raise the fund afterwards." And lo and behold, I'm on my 14th year in the company.
So moving on, what kind of shape was Globe in when you first joined?
Well, the company was very different back then. The industry was very different back then, and the consumer needs were also very different back then. At that point in time, there was intense competition for voice and SMS. Globe was a weaker number 2 player, and there was a third player called Sun that was eating up the market share. So I think the decision at that point was to look at the things that we needed to change. The network was aging. We could see that data was on the horizon. If a network like what we had difficulty satisfying unlimited voice and SMS, there was no way that we would be able to satisfy the data requirements of people, right? So on the horizon, we could also see disruption coming our way. And at the same time, the systems on IT were also aging, the batch mode processing, for instance. And, we also understood that real-time processing was going to be the key if you were going to compete in a data world. And so there's a lot of change that was going to be needed. But I think most important of all, the company operated with a utility mindset. And what I mean by that is the company operated like a water utility, electric utility, where consumers really don't have a choice in who their supplier would be, right? There's only one in every jurisdiction. That's the mentality, but that wasn't the market reality. It was a very competitive, consumer market, right? And we were losing out at that point in time. We had, I think, a few years of market share decline and continuing. So we had to repivot the company into a very different mindset, away from that utility mindset, as I called it back then.
What were some of the early changes you made to ensure Globe had a solid footing for success?
Well, I think on the attitudinal front for the people at Globe, we first instilled a customer-first mindset. I mentioned the utility thinking and utility mindset. We shifted that into a very consumer orientation. And to be consumer-oriented, you've got to be customer first. And so we started to think about how do we get people to be customer first, right? It's a simple thing that we picked up from other great companies. And the first thing for people to be able to serve customers well is for them to love their own jobs and their company. So we started to create a I Love Globe campaign, and wanted to start off by saying, with the adage of, only happy employees can really serve and make customers happy. So we start with the employees, right? Engage them. We make them happy. right? We worked on their benefits, we worked on the facilities, we worked on ensuring that they feel valued and so on and feel empowered. Try to get them on our journey, get them passionate about it, and it seemed to work, right? The second thing was looking at the market. The market was about to undergo a very severe disruption. We were moving from feature phones to smartphones. And again, we were losing the battle in terms of the voice and SMS game and said, you know what, let's declare that battle lost. Let's move to a new frontier, in the frontier of data. All right, that's going to come. Let's position ourselves to be the data company in the Philippines so that when people imagine that they want to move into mobile data as a service, they have to think Globe, right? So we completely changed out our network to deal with data. At that point, it was a 2G, 3G type of transition. 4G wasn't there yet, right? So, and then we said, hey, look, the billing systems have to be also replaced because they are in batch mode. And in data, you cannot have batch mode, right? And so the big bold move was to do it at the same time or simultaneous or overlapping with each other. So we started the process first of changing out the whole network with an ambition of 12 months. We did it in 13. That wasn't so bad. And a year into that, as we were already about to finish the network, we started the IT transformation, which is probably more difficult. It is not probably, but it was more difficult than doing the network transformation. And then we also changed about our marketing strategy, as I said, to a mobile data company. And we started with reconfiguring our stores from mere payment centers to actual telco retail shops, experiential retail shops, where people could experience what a smartphone looked like, what a smartphone felt like, because in the past, I call it, we had dummy phones under lock and key, right? Nobody could touch the phone. You couldn't experience a smartphone unless you decided to buy it. And once we opened that box, it was yours, right? Without prior experience. And it kind of fed off each other, all of these strategies. And, in 8 years' time, we were the number one in the industry in terms of the mobile business.
So Ernest, now that you're becoming a diversified digital services company, what do you see as next for Globe?
Well, first of all, I think it's creating the wide realization that at some point in time, telco is going to mature. We don't have to be a genius to know that or have a crystal ball, because you'll see the developed markets, the telcos are all mature. Growth is hard to find. We were just a very fortunate company that we found growth in several parts of our telco business. Until today, we still have growth. We started off in the postpaid business. We had even more phenomenal growth in our prepaid business on the mobile side. And now we're enjoying growth in the broadband side of the business. But then again, it all gets saturated at some point. When every person has a smartphone and a plan, every home has a broadband connection and Wi-Fi, that's going to reach that saturation point. Then you look back and think, why not use telco as a great platform into building a business? Telco has all of the assets, great distribution, great customer base, lots of data about customers, wonderful marketing executives, right? Talent. We have capital. Globe also had a great partnership reputation. We brought in the names like Google, Facebook, Spotify, Netflix, HBO, Disney, name them. They became partners of Globe. So I thought to myself, building business on top of business should not only be the domain of the .coms. Right? You've got companies in social media, in search, in transport, or even in delivery or whatever. Just because they're .coms, they build the business, they get a high valuation, right? But telcos, with all these assets, with fantastic EBITDA, and by the way, we've got a 50% EBITDA margin up till today, why can't we build a business? And so we really pushed our people to say, look, we're going to take all these assets and we're going to start building businesses in adjacencies that we have permission to play because of these assets. I call it, we have an unfair advantage, right? And I guess one reason that the markets don't really think telcos can do it because no telco has succeeded in actually creating something, or if there are, hasn't been massive yet. And so we proceeded to work on our first venture, which is Mint, which is the parent company of Gcash, which today is, the largest e-wallet provider in the Philippines. Recently achieved unicorn status, with a valuation of $2 billion, and has attracted a whole host of world-class type of investors now backing it. And I think that proves the point that telco can do it, right? So let's go for the second step. Let's institutionalize how we build businesses, right? So we created 917 Ventures, whose job it is to exploit what I called the unfair advantage into other areas where we may have brand permission to play. And I say may because we don't know where it is, right? There's some, as quick as we're opening businesses, we're also closing them down, right? But today, I think we've got some traction as well in health tech, in ad tech, in e-commerce. We're having a play in a very specific niche of e-commerce, and even media will be coming up on our horizon soon.
One of the things Globe is known for is being an energetic, purpose-centered organization. How is that shaping the day-to-day work in the company?
The essence of the Globe purpose, really, regardless of how we word it, is to help Filipinos improve their daily lives, improve Filipino individuals and Filipino businesses by empowering them with digital solutions, right? We saw that with Gcash, right, where the problem to solve was actually financial inclusion. For the longest time, this country only had 35% of its population with access to financial services. Today, Gcash has 51 million users, registered users, so that's over half the population and still going, right? We're going to do about, 70 billion US dollars worth of transactions into the platform in 2021. So that's an achievement, right? So, the purpose is really to bring about these services which are transformational, and look at what the everyday problems of the consumer are. So we still remain customer first. Think about the consumer. What are the problems, right? Fortunately, for us, we had some solutions ready when the pandemic hit that the customers, sort of migrated to. Gcash was one of them. Consulta MD and Health Now are our health tech plays, and telehealth consultation became a norm. And so people are accepting that, and now it's our job to scale that, bring about additional services that make lives a whole lot easier. We also focus on businesses. For instance, we ourselves knew for enterprises and medium and large businesses, the cloud transformation journey was difficult. It's still nascent in the Philippines, and then alongside it is cybersecurity. Since Globe was very good at those two things, being a cloud-first company, we decided to package those and bring them as offerings to the public as well. And they've received, of course, now a lot of attention, and it's now become a staple product for Globe.
Ernest, you and your team have had an amazing run for over a decade. When you reflect back on your tenure, what are the things you're most proud of?
I think, aside from all the business success that we've had, from market leadership to building unicorns, I think it's a win-win situation. When telco succeeds, that means you've built a fantastic infrastructure that allows people to communicate with themselves or with each other and link to the internet, which opens up lives. I think those are the first set of transformations, where people, when we made phones available to the public, very easily, they could speak to each other, connect with each other, almost within minutes. Then we opened up their eyes to the internet, right? Which opens up the world to them. As we know, the wealth of information changes people's lives. And the third wave of transformation is in financial inclusion, empowering them with financial tools now that were unreachable for them. I think that makes me very happy going into the sunset when the time comes.
Thank you so much, Ernest, for discussing and telling us your stories. They're truly inspiring, and we here at IMD can see how proud you are of the incredible transformation that Globe has achieved.
It's my pleasure, Rick. Thank you so much for the opportunity as well to share our story.